Alright guys, we are back. Good evening, good morning, or good afternoon. As always, it is so great to see you here with me today. Now, we're going to be talking about 5 tips to create powerful wide-angle photos. I've got a lot of questions from followers asking about what they can do to improve the quality of their wide-angle photos. And luckily, there are tons of tips and tricks that you can follow to make those wide-angle images look much better. And as I was putting this video together, I realized that 5 tips simply is not going to be enough. So if you stick around to the end of this video, you're going to get a couple excellent bonus tips, plus you're going to get details of our current giveaway. Now, my go-to wide-angle lens for landscape photography is my Canon 15-35 2.8. When it was Nikon, it was the 14-24. Now, let me be very clear here. The tips I'm going to share with you today can apply to any wide-angle lens from any manufacturer, so don't let the brand or the focal range of the lens get in your way. But before we get on to today's tutorial, I do want to welcome you back to the channel. It is so great to see you here. And if you're new here, I'm going to welcome you to the channel, and I would be honored if you would consider hitting the subscribe button. By subscribing, you're going to stay on top of all the new content that we put out, the photography tutorials, the news, the gear reviews, and much more. Plus, to be eligible for our monthly giveaways, you have to be a subscriber. So subscribing to the channel does have its benefits. So now with that out of the way, pull up a seat and let's go. First off, think of the big picture. When you're shooting a wide-angle image, it's easy for the photo to look a little empty. It's also easy to fall into the trap to include things that shouldn't be there. Now, to prevent this from happening, you need to ensure that every element in the frame is there for a reason. Now, additionally, all the elements in the shot should make sense when viewed together. Take this photo as a prime example of this concept. The combination of the colors of the sunset, the shape of the hills and the mountain, and the texture of the trees and grasses, and the range of tones in the shot make this a successful image. We also see the same concept in action in this photo as well. Notice how there is something at every level of the photo to keep our interest, and that these elements work together to create a compelling photo. The shape, the colors, the texture of the rocks in the foreground lure us into the scene. The beautifully blurred waterfall in the midground serves as a primary focal point of the shot, and the explosion of the color in the foliage in the background, as well as the stone walls that rise toward the sky, finish off the story of this image with a bang. The word that should come to mind here is harmony. Are all the elements in the shot working together to make a more appealing image, as in the case with this photo? Or are there things in this photo that are distracting and should be eliminated? Remember that when you think of the big picture, you don't have to include a million different elements in the frame. Instead, have 3, 4, or 5 features that work together to create a beautiful and interesting shot. You still need a strong subject. As important as it is to think about the big picture, and as critical as it is to include multiple elements in the frame that work together, friend, you still need a single strong subject to anchor the image. Now in this photo, the narrow peninsula of the land that juts off into the water is a strong subject the photo needs. It's a interesting shape that, it grabs your attention, but the cliffs are also illuminated from the right by the setting sun. This highlights the interesting textures of the cliff while also adding an orange glow that further enhances the strip of the land as the primary subject. The colors of the sky, the deep blue water, and the tiny lighthouse of the tip of the peninsula further add to the visual appeal of this photo. What do you think? Okay, this image demonstrates that you don't need a big subject for it to be a strong subject. The tree in the center of the frame is the first thing I notice about the photo. Why? There are 3 factors that make it a strong subject. First, the leading lines created by the lavender field push your eye towards the horizon where the tree stands. Second, the tree is illuminated from the front, and that area of brightness helps grab our attention. Third, the tree extends above the horizon, and that, my friend, is the only element that is doing so, which enables it to stick out and become the primary point of interest. Here's another example of the idea that a strong subject doesn't have to be a big subject. In this case, the person gazing out at the canyon immediately grabs our attention. And while they are the focal point of the shot, we can see how framing the shot using a big picture mentally has created a beautifully layered image with interesting elements throughout that work really well together. One of my favorites, use leading lines. Leading lines are one of the best wide-angle compositional elements because it helps you make your images a cohesive whole. In this shot, the dock and the boat extending into the water help connect the nearest parts of the foreground with the rest of the image. Following these lines allow our eye to travel through the shot and lead us up towards the soaring mountains in the background. Lines make viewing an image an active process. Rather than simply looking at the shot, they take you through the shot and allow you to experience each element in the photo. And lines don't have to be in your face either. In this image, the Golden Gate Bridge is obviously the leading line that connects the midground with the background. But if you look at the foreground, you can see that the line created by the surf coming ashore helps guide our eyes deeper into the shot. See what I mean? In this example, the line created by the cliff's edge helps strengthen the tree as the primary subject in the shot. Additionally, the leading line helps break up the white clouds to give the photo more dynamic range and therefore much more visual appeal. Get nice and low. One of the best ways that you can create powerful wide-angle images is to get your camera down low to the ground. Doing so will help emphasize the foreground while also giving the shot an incredible sense of depth. Okay, now in this photo, getting down low to the foreground grasses helps us see the detail in the grasses and the unevenness of the terrain. This, in turn, helps us set the stage for the shot by making it seem as though the grass is almost leaping off the screen. Notice how the low angle view gives the photo lots of depth because there's a distinct foreground that gives way to the ridge in the midground and the sky in the background. Here's another example of the value of getting low. In this case, the slab of rock in the foreground creates a nice leading line that push our eye towards the sun. Again, this gives us a nice introduction to the shot. There's so much foreground in it that makes it seem as if we are right there sitting on that slab of rock taking in the sunset. But getting down low doesn't mean that you have to fill the frame with the foreground. In this example, setting the camera at a moderate height allowed for the inclusion of the boulder sticking out of the water. This also helps anchor the foreground and provide a little bit more visual appeal that makes the foreground of this image much more interesting. Next, move around. This is a simple tip that you hear all the time from professional photographers, but there's a really good reason why it is so important. Moving just a little bit to the left or moving to the right can make all the difference in the photo, especially when you're shooting with a wide-angle lens and you got a lot of foreground interest. Let's look at a series of shots that illustrate this point. This first image is pretty blah if you ask me. There's not much that I find at all compelling, but by moving a little, we get an improved image that still isn't quite there. All right, friend, the easiest way to survey this scene is with your camera in your hand. Don't immediately put your camera on your tripod. By doing so, this gives you freedom to move to the left, move to the right, to kneel down, get closer, or find a vantage point that puts you higher up. Doing so enables you to go from the previous two shots to this one, which is far more successful. Really, this tip is more about experimentation than anything else. Don't be in a big rush. Take the time to set up, frame up 5, 10, 15 different views, and once you found the best, then put your camera onto the tripod and set up your shot properly. All right, now let's talk about a couple bonus tips while we're at it. Bonus tip number 1, make the composition count. When composing a wide-angle shot, you have to ensure that the composition of the image is something that really draws the viewer into the scene. Since you can capture so much from the front to back with a wide-angle lens, you want to make sure that each layer of the composition benefits the next. For example, in this shot, the large black mountain in the background is the focal point of the shot. But notice how the foreground and the midground layers help enhance the strength of the mountain as the focal point. The rocks in the foreground give us a better sense of terrain and how rugged it is. The leading line of the shore that extends from the foreground to the background helps direct our attention towards the mountain. Even the low-hanging clouds that surround the mountain peak add to the composition. The white clouds offer nice balance to the black mountain. In this example, the composition benefits from getting down close to the ground. This enables us to see the beautiful shapes and the texture of the rocks in the foreground. In the midground layer, we have a river bending through the frame to add movement to the shot. And in the background, we have the focal point. Yes, the double rainbows that add all sorts of color and, of course, magic to the image. Look, whatever you choose from a compositional standpoint, the image you create needs to tell a story and help the viewer understand what the scene is like. The composition can also serve to help the viewer move from one point in a photo to the next by using a leading line, or it can help you create a feeling of mood, like the sense of calm and tranquility that this photo creates. Bonus tip number 2, minimize dead space. You don't want to overwhelm your viewer with a wide-angle shot that is just stuffed to death with so much detail. On the flip side, you don't want to bore them with wide areas of the shot that are just simply lacking much interest. Let me show you what I mean. In this photo, the wildflowers are pretty, but there are so many of them that the center of the shot becomes dead space we want to avoid. There's just not enough detail to make this area interesting. Now, photographing water, as in this photo, you might find that there's no detail in the water to capture the attention of the viewer. And don't get me wrong, I actually like this photo, but there's just too much water in the shot. One thing that you can do to avoid dead space is to increase the focal length. So instead of shooting at 18mm, zoom in to 24mm to eliminate some of the dead space and create a better composition. Or as you can see in this shot, find elements that help break up the dead space. The wall that breaks up the water helps prevent the bottom left of the image from turning into dead space. Since water can easily become dead space, look at opportunities to use reflections to add more interest to the shot. This photo is a prime example. The reflection of the mountain and the trees in the water is a perfect solution for avoiding tons of dead space in the foreground. Avoiding dead space takes a little bit of practice, but now that you know what to look for, you can strive to prevent it from ruining your photos. Now that you're armed with some excellent wide-angle photography tips, let's talk about this month's giveaway. Here are the prizes that we have this month: a Peak Design carbon fiber tripod, a Peak Design travel backpack, a Peak Design everyday backpack zip, and the $100 Adorama gift card. Now, as always, to enter the giveaway, it is very simple. Step 1, like this video and subscribe to our channel. Step 2, leave a comment below. In fact, the more of our videos that you watch and leave a comment on, the greater the chance that you have to win. So get watching some of our other videos and leave some comments. Step 3, register on PhotographyTalk and introduce yourself in the forum. Now, if you did introduce yourself during one of our last giveaways, you're still eligible to win. But as you keep hearing me say over and over again, swing on by, say hello, we would love to see you. Friend, that is it. For complete details on the giveaway, including how to register on PhotographyTalk and how to say hello in the forum, check out the description below. Good luck. Well, there you go, friend. There are some tips to help you maximize your wide-angle lens to really get those landscape shots that you're after. If you found some value in this video, if you were entertained, again, do all that YouTube stuff, hit the like button down below, smash that bell to be notified as we come out with new videos, and we sure would love to have it if you would consider subscribing to the channel. All right, my friend, I'm going to be jumping out of here. You get out there, stay healthy, and create your best shot.